Was it pleasure at breakfast?
The Japanese didn't know how to react to this at all. I mean, quite frankly, their first thought was to get out as quick as they could. I think we could say we definitely took round one on that one.
Then it's time to take part in some traditional Dangerous Sports Club sporting activities. The visitors find it an exciting and deeply religious experience.
I want to have the rope. Do it that way, yeah? Okay.
And that's my main memories of the Japanese trip.
The club then visits Japan, where it is always raining, to appear in one of their top entertainment shows. Harvey Urich decides to show them how it is done and ends up being signed by MGM for their latest musical. And then countless Japanese volunteers surge forwards to have a go themselves. One of them is carefully selected by two club members.
Time for a cream tea.
The usual take-off procedure for flightless birds is rigorously observed. And a successful launch achieved.
Dave Aikenhead's catapult was actually worked on by some of the finest rocket scientists in the world who are going back to Roman principles.
Another stunt created for the Japanese by the club involves a Roman-style catapult being set up by the side of a river in Ireland. The idea? To catapult people instead of boulders.
Terrible.
The catapult that I flung myself into the river with in Ireland was basically a representation of the old medieval catapults, although this particular one was power-assisted with bungee ropes as well as dead weight. We had test-fired a few dummies, but that was the first time anyone had actually been on the catapult themselves, and I really did not know what was going to happen, other than at some point I would land up in the river.
It is difficult to calculate the G-forces a human being will encounter when launched from the machine. As usual, the club decides there is only one way to find out.
Speed I was going at when I hit the water, it was probably somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 mile an hour. It feels like you're hanging in the air for 7 seconds. I landed in a perfect backflop. It was a far bigger thump than I thought it was going to be. This basically knocked all the wind out of me completely. I had great difficulty swimming. I just couldn't get any air into my system at all. Fortunately, the river wasn't too deep, but it was a bit of a struggle making it to the bank.
Mission accomplished. But funnily enough, nobody else seems very keen to have a go themselves.
I wasn't injured as such, but it did take me by surprise.
Whilst in Ireland, the club addresses an age-old problem of how to get out of bed in the morning.
We did it in the beautifully named Falls Hotel in County Clare, I believe.
A full Irish breakfast is laid on for the dozy club member as he prepares himself for a rude awakening.
We just saw these falls and said, whoopee, mattresses are made of rubber, let's see what we can do here.
The object of the exercise is to drift off while not drifting off, if you follow.
The Japanese have one name for the English on their shows. The Japanese title was Extraordinary Freaks of the West. But next time we'll have a proper four-poster bed with a full splintering of wood and crumpling of crockery and scrambled eggs in the face.
This is a target aircraft and rocket launcher, normally found on aircraft carriers and occasionally in deserts.
The Irish catapult job, that was very interesting because of so many different problems associated with it.
I gave a little bit of technical advice to David on his catapult ideas. Well, I pretty much stayed away from the final jump off the cliff in Ireland.
Aesthetically, we could have jumped off anywhere in the world, but we chose the best and the most beautiful place we could think of, which was the cliffs of Moher in Ireland. So we had 900 feet of sheer vertical stuff. So there was a bailout situation there which involved 900-foot ropes, experienced climbers, plus a Zodiac motorboat, plus operating from a fishing boat, which, because of the tide and things. We then had a problem of propelling a body sufficiently far out, despite strong oncoming winds from the Atlantic, and despite very strong incoming tides. So if that body had landed in the water, it could have been dashed against the rocks.
Nobody can tell how dangerous this stunt will be. Extreme compression of the body in a split second could be extremely damaging.
Then there was the logistics of flinging men out sufficiently fast, which presented a lot of problems to do with gravity and acceleration and all this. And what would happen if, for example, I was shot out sufficiently fast, I just blacked out in the first quarter second. I had to work out how my arms would move, or how my head would move, or how everything would move, you know. There's a funny thing in the stunt world called "you're just a piece of meat." I was no more than a piece of meat for that job. In typical fashion, the resin to bind the protective foam was delayed by 24 hours, and so I thought, okay, I'll take my chances on this one, beef up the padding. I made my apologies to my mother, and I said I could have really screwed it up this time. Well, please give my compliments to my mother. What she did to deserve this, I certainly don't know. The fact that I was operating without proper back support was the worrying thing, because I felt, right, you're probably going to get smashed, you may not walk again.
David is beginning to wonder if it's all worthwhile. Tension mounts as the catapult is made ready for the launch.
All right, check position.
Safety bars out.
Safety bars out.
You okay?
Okay.
Got your drogue?
Got my drag.
Pull your legs well in.
Legs well in. All right.
3, 2, 1.
When the word go went, I gave myself a fraction of a second before I opened my arms with a certain emphasis, so the wind would blow a parachute out if I was blacked. Then the drogue would take off on the chute from behind me. Weston and I worked it out. I think it was slightly faster than a Tomcat off an aircraft carrier in San Diego.
makes it in one piece, although he subsequently discovered that he had cracked his spine in 2 places, injuries which take months to mend themselves.
Happiness.
The most terrifying stunt for me was definitely the bridge in Japan. Although I'd bungee jumped plenty of times before, that bridge was a completely unknown quantity.
Well, your head out, it's like a rugger tackle. You're going horizontal, you're not going vertical because your head's going to do all the work.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, no problem.
Lovely.
Of course there's no problem. He's got the hat, he's got the suit, he's got the heebie-jeebies. And who can blame him as he prepares to bungee jump from a high bridge into fog and mist? It's cold, and the pressure is stacked on David's shoulders with the television cameras out in force to record the event. This is a highly dangerous stunt. It's hardly surprising he's apprehensive.
Going over the edge was very, very worrying, to be honest. We had no means of a practice jump. Nobody'd ever jumped off that bridge before. We really didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah, stick it up. Nice and tight. Right now. Just going to dive straight out. Everything feels like it's tangled up behind me. Am I ready to go? We didn't know what was in the valley below, apart from snow and mist, and I was literally jumping into a total void.
1, 2, 3, hooray!
The jump is a success, and David's fears are allayed.
When I first went over the edge, I was in a state of complete, utter terror. As you'll see in the film, my legs were pumping convulsively, and this apparently is a sure sign of somebody that's in a state of terror.
Well done, Dave. Jolly good.
One of the more bizarre stunts we did was the champagne cocktail party on top of a hot air balloon. That involved Dave and myself getting on top of a hot air balloon, getting it up to 1,000 foot in the air and cracking open the champagne.
Our weight was a bit heavy, mine in particular rather than Harvey's. We had to build some lightweight aluminium, we had to get collapsible picnic tables. It was just a bit of a last-minute muddle through, but it was just great fun. Thanks to the great skill of Tony Faulkner, the balloonist, we got upright and we had fun. Just a few brief moments of paradise.
One of the problems that we had was the fact that the hot air balloon is around about 100 C and it's a bit hot to stand on and you don't fall into it. The other problem we had is danger of making the balloon top heavy, and you can actually then get the whole balloon to roll over, which in turn it spills the hot air and you come crashing down. We actually got over it by having an enormous balloon and then lead weighting the basket. It was quite an interesting one, and it's the most peaceful thing in the world to be sat up there in the air in the mountains drinking champagne on top of the balloon.
Quito, Ecuador, a town 10,000 feet above sea level. A town like many others, nowhere else on Earth. We're here to follow the exploits of the Dangerous Sports Club on their expedition to hang glide over some of the highest active volcanoes in the world. I'm here for a bloody good time. Now, an expedition of this kind calls for superb physical fitness.
Up, 1, 2.
Morning.
Done. Morning. Done. 1, 2. Up, 1, 2. Done. 1, 2.
Minutes of meticulous planning.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Morning. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Seconds of thought.
You're not training?
No, I was just thinking about last night's lobster thermidor.
No.
And sheer stupidity.
Morning.
Morning.
The journey up Mount Kilimanjaro was quite a nightmare. It's about 19,000 feet up to the edge of the crater where we were attempting to launch from, and the air is really thin, and the accumulation of the altitude effects really debilitated me.
Hang gliding off Africa's highest peak was one of the club's biggest expeditions.
5 minutes ago I was having a cup of tea, and now it's sort of light drizzly rain. Seems to be about 5,000 feet still to go. Still, the prospect of a bit of supper at the top tonight.
Only 5 out of the original 12 or 13 of the group actually made it to the top, mostly because of the altitude sickness. I remember throwing up a lot towards the end, taking a couple of steps at a time and stopping.
The climb last night was absolute murder. I think it was about one of the most difficult things I've ever taken on in a competition.
Preston make it. We had 5 to the top, but then Jonathan was feeling very bad, so he has a very bad headache.
We found ourselves pressed for time at the end of this trip, and we were forced to make the climb to the top in a day or two less than what is recommended to allow your bodies to adjust to the altitude, to the lack of oxygen.
We all had most of the falling, sort of headaches and general malaise sort of coming out of it.
It's not a bizarre, one-off, squinky, psychopathic little thrill. It is something genuinely wonderful if you do it.
I'd flown for 3 or 4 years by that time, and I was fairly experienced, maybe the second most experienced of the bunch.
You cannot really explain what it's like.
We agreed that I would be the last to fly. I was going to be the anchor, if you like, of the team. Ashley, being the most experienced, went first, and I was supposed to fly at the end.
The going has been tough, but eventually they get the bottle open. Now it is the moment of truth as they prepare to fly into dense cloud cover. This is a flight into the unknown and therefore highly dangerous. Anything could be concealed below the clouds.
Get well out of the way, Dave. Right down there. Right out of the way.
Oh, you made it. God, you're mad. I admire him. Bloody hell. I really admire him, actually. He goes for it. He really goes for it.
We tried to launch as early as possible to get down to the ground before the cloud cover came in so we could actually plan where we landed.
I had done a little bit of hang gliding, and I knew that people had always said, you know, one thing you mustn't do is fly in cloud.
But it took us so long to get to the top and get rigged up that by the time that we were launching, the clouds had come in.
It was with quite some trepidation that I pointed the nose of the hang glider at about 5,000 foot thick of cloud.
How's the cloud cover, Alan?
Okay.
Simon did go in a weird and wonderful socks and a spin dryer takeoff.
I lifted it up, seemed okay, and I said, right, out of the way. The person, whoever it was, got out of the way. So I pushed the nose forward and up, and then I was going all over the place, and it was terribly, terribly sensitive.
I don't believe it.
And I was feeling quite unstable, but I managed to get it stable.
I do not believe it. I do not believe it. Simon Keeling is the luckiest man I've ever met in my life.
The third man takes off, not knowing what has happened to his 2 colleagues on their flights.
Most of us hadn't flown cross-country before, and of course this country was very unknown to all of us. And the concern there, or the question there, was flying over the clouds, you wouldn't be able to pick out a big open field and land, but you might end up instead in some thick jungle.
All three land safely, some more elegantly than others.
Was it worth it? Yeah, certainly it was worth it.
I stalled on takeoff and I spun in pretty much immediately.
I packed the kite with a spear, a hunting knife for the jungle. I've got water on me, I've got survival rations, I've got flares. I've got everything I could possibly need for surviving in the jungle for about a week. Unfortunately, I've only got 30 feet, which is a bit of a letdown, really.
All right, Alan.
I'm all right, I'm not pissed off. Perhaps next year I'll have better luck.
Fortunately, I didn't break anything. I was very disappointed, particularly at the idea that I had to walk down the damn hill again after feeling so sick getting up there. I really wanted to get off the mountain.
I remember thinking very seriously all through the flight, I said, God, if only people knew what fun this was, there'd be a queue all the way up the mountain to do it.
The club climbs to new heights and chooses one of the highest bridges in the world to carry out the longest bungee jump in history. It has a large turnout of club members. All the traditions of the club are strictly observed. Rigorous preparation, a spot of bubbly, a good cigar. They even bring their own piano. The ropes are extremely heavy because of their incredible length, but they know that the recoil or bounce back will not be a factor because of the height of the jump. 3 members jump. These amazing shots of this impressive jump are probably more memorable than any other. It could only happen in America.
With bungee jumping, when you step off, you have that great moment when all the brain cells go off at once, but you know that very soon you'll be caught by the rope and it'll stop. With base jumping, you may be falling for quite a long time before you open your parachute, so you have more time to actually fly, in a real sense, controlling your movement and to take in the scenery around you.
Base jumping is the art of free-falling and parachuting from land-based structures. This is a dangerous sport that requires split-second timing and accuracy to avoid fatal accidents. We join the club on an electric pylon in Bristol at 6 in the morning.
When you hurl yourself down from a great height, you have to overcome a certain natural physical reluctance by an act of will. And the moment when you step out into this real world where it's just you and gravity, people enjoy that. People come down with a big grin. They bring the memory of that back with them. Simple fear of hitting the ground is something you left behind earlier.
Okay, I think the moment is nigh.
People go a long way to avoid looking foolish and exposing their errors of judgment. And what you're afraid of is screwing up.
Whenever you're ready, here you go. Here it goes.
Nice. There is no room for error, and it's a good idea to make sure your chute is packed properly. Any mistakes, and you are in trouble.
Nice stuff, isn't it? All right, that looks like a really cool kind of dive. He's heading into fog. Oh, he's landed. And he's okay. Whenever you're ready, Mark. Okay, go for it.
Mark Chamberlain has problems with his chute not opening fully.
He's got a little twist there, but he sticks out of it, and he's got an air cell closure again.
He's falling far too quickly and could be in trouble.
Still not got it quite open.
Luckily, he is unhurt.
I'm heading for the trees. No, I'm going to make it.
Martin Lister has no such problems and lands safely.
Base jumping is the real thing. We probably did do some unwise base jumps that I wouldn't repeat today.
When I jumped off Cheddar Gorge, no one had ever done it before.
Cheddar Gorge was a particularly dangerous jump because it was very low. It was only 350 feet, and that's exceptionally low for a free-fall jump.
Martin Lister and myself decided to come along and have a go at it.
For base jumping, you want to get the parachute out and inflate it as quickly as possible.
We'd start at that pinnacle at the top there, which you can see, which is just highlighted, and you would actually open the canopy about where that white mark is on the rock.
There's no time to spare to get the parachute open. It has to open facing away from the cliff.
So it gives you about 150 feet with the canopy to deploy and land.
You've then got about 10 or 15 seconds to line up a landing site. So really, absolutely no time to spare at any stage.
I had a horrendous jump here. Martin had already done one jump, which went perfectly. I did my first run up and slipped. And then the canopy opened, it was facing backwards, 180 degrees, which meant basically that I was going straight backwards into the cliff face. I managed to bury the whole of the front riser down to my leg, which turned the canopy back into the right direction. I hit the road at about 30 miles an hour. So it's sort of like, if you manage to survive the base jump, it's quite likely you're going to get run over anyway.
It's difficult to say after the event if something was really terribly dangerous or just seemed that way.
It's as close as I've ever come to checking out.
Mark is probably right that Cheddar Gorge was a very dangerous base jump.
There's 7 or 8 people who've jumped Cheddar Gorge.
You can't really be sure exactly how dangerous until a large number of people have done it and you can count the bodies.
I know that there are only about 4 people who are still alive.
Well, I enjoyed it. I did it twice. Then I decided to stop while I was ahead.
It's the 4th dimension. There's no other sensation like it.